Hello, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. So it is January. It is the season of Yule, which runs from the winter solstice until February 1st. That's the day before Imbolc. And I just wanted to talk for a little bit about what I do in my garden during this time of year. And you may think it's a little strange for me to be talking about gardening when it is literally freezing outside. And that is because I don't do anything outside. Everything that I do is basically here. It is indoors. It is all planning. Now, I do want to give you a caveat that this is what I'm doing during the season of Yule, but it may not be best for you. My garden is in Zone 7B here in Virginia. If you don't know your USDA zones, they're basically the country and probably all parts of the world are broken up into sections called zones that are based on the lowest freezing temperatures during the winter time and the average length of cold from first frost to last frost. So what I'm doing here in Virginia may be very different from what someone in, say, Arizona is doing, because they may be planting now. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't live in Arizona. So what I'm doing here in Virginia is planning. You may need to get outside and determine for yourself what tasks need to be done in your garden throughout the course of the year. That is something that only you can determine for yourself through experience, but I'm just giving you the example of what I am doing at this time of year. So the season of Yule is all about garden planning for me. Planning for the coming year, what I'm planning on doing, what I'm planning on planting, where I want to plant it. A big part of garden planning, of course, is educating yourself, getting to know about those plants that you're going to plant, and the best resource for that simply is the local library. The library has a huge wealth of gardening books, way more gardening books than they have witchy books. If you don't know where to start, if you're brand new to gardening, I will always recommend anything from the Rodale Press. They are considered to be the premier publisher of gardening information books. Their books are always very clear, very well written, very down to earth, and just have a huge wealth of information in them. Some of my absolute favorite all-time garden books to this day are still Rodale books. I have the Rodale A to Z Guide to Vegetable Gardening is one of my favorites for vegetable gardening. Literally lists everything out, encyclopedic format, and just gives everything A to Z, all the different things you would grow in your garden, what pests they tend to get attacked by, and what to do about it. Another good book from Rodale, if you don't already have it or you can't find it, this is one I actually would recommend purchasing on Amazon. You can get a used copy for a very reasonable price. I think I got mine for about $6. That is the Rodale Herb book. Again, it's a encyclopedic format, A to Z. It gives a listing not only of herbs, but also of things you can do with herbs. It's actually kind of like a covert witchy book, so very highly recommend that one. So yes, January, season of Yule, is a very good time to read garden books because you're going to be stuck inside anyway. What better way to do that than curl up with a good book and maybe a nice hot cup of tea? So another part of garden planning, of course, is just kind of figuring out what space you have to work with and what you're going to do with that space. Big part of that, of course, for me is working out my garden layout. I'm a huge nerd. I like to do things to scale, but I will recommend, let me actually show you here. So I have two here, and this is an example. This is one actually that my mom did. I don't know if you can see that there. That is the entire layout of my garden, and she did not do this to scale. She just drew up a real quick sketch, basically put markers for where everything was already, and then laid out a plan of what she thought would be good. This is something she did when I first moved into my house. I still have it. I did tweak it a little bit initially. I was adding things in, changing things. Now I've just left it as it was, just because it's that memory for me of how things were when I first moved in. This is a more recent one for me. This is one that is actually done to scale. I've done this on graph paper. Each square is a foot. And this is actually the layout of my little patio and my herb bed where all my witchy herbs are. This probably needs to be updated. It looks like a mess. It has been erased and rewritten multiple times. Each one of these little circles here is a particular plant, and I have the name of the plant in it. And the circle basically indicates the average spread of the plant, and this helps me to determine what I can fit in where. I usually tend to underestimate. My plants tend to get a little bit bigger than that, which is not necessarily a bad thing. If the plants are growing edge to edge on each other, that actually shades out the ground and prevents weeds from going underneath them. You just don't want them to be so close together that they get crowded and that they then struggle against each other. So this is my layout. Highly recommend doing this, not only just because it helps you plan your garden, but also because you can then go back and look at it next year when you don't remember what you planted where, because that happens even to me. I put something new in there and then it pops up the next spring and I go, oh man, which one are you again? Because when they're new to me, I oftentimes don't recognize them when they're in that young phase. So definitely highly worthwhile to have some sort of plan or layout for the area that you're going to work in, what's going to go where. Try to stick to it, but always do it in pencil. I always do it in pencil because things get erased and rewritten. This one probably I need to start over from scratch. I've erased it a few too many times, but definitely you want to have some sort of layout. I will tell you, if this is your first garden, definitely start small. You may only have a balcony, in which case you can probably fill up most of that balcony, but if you have an actual yard that you're working with, don't think you're going to turn over that whole yard into this beautiful garden in 1 year. Don't even think you're going to do it in 10 years. One piece at a time, one section at a time. I've worked beds into maybe somewhere between 25 and 30% of my yard, and it's taken me about 15 years to do that. When you're doing perennials, sometimes you can get them to a point where they don't need as much care, and that's where I'm at with some parts of my yard. I only need to go through maybe once a month and do some light weeding in order to take care of them. The plants take care of themselves, but it takes time to get to that point. And when you're first getting started, if you do too much at once, you're going to get overwhelmed, and you're probably going to get frustrated, and you may quit, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to start small. It's better for you to have one very small bed that's very well tended and looks very nice that you can then expand upon next year than to try and do this huge undertaking, bite off more than you can chew and choke on it. So don't do that. Start small, please. Let's see. Catalogs. If you've ordered from plant retailers in the past, they usually send you a new catalog in January. That's when they always put out their catalogs. If you have never ordered plants online or from a catalog before, most of them do have an online presence, and you can request a catalog usually for free. Let me show you some of the catalogs I have here. So some of these I know, some of these I don't. These are just the ones that I've gotten recently. These are not the entirety of my catalog. So I got this one from Johnny Selected Seeds. I've never ordered from them before. This is one that's new to me. Looks like they're mostly geared towards like the small scale farmer. They do have a lot of tools, which were really interesting to me, in addition to seeds mostly for crop plants, vegetables, herbs, some flowers, etc. This is one that I do order from regularly. This is Bluestone Perennials. They're based out of Ohio. This is one that my mother used to order from, which is why I always order from them. They do tend to be a little on the pricier side with their perennials, but I've never had any problems with their plants. They've always come in great condition. They do have a more limited selection, but all of their plants are perennials. They come back year after year. This is one that I've ordered from the past, and I just want to give you the disclaimer. I don't get any money or kickbacks or anything for any of these people. I am just telling you who I've ordered from and the ones that I know. There are probably a bunch of great ones out there that I don't know. Kitchen Garden Seeds, John Sheepers. As you can imagine, mostly vegetables and herbs. Smaller catalog, tend to have more unusual varieties. I will show you this one. This is my all-time favorite catalog. This one is the J.L. Hudson Seedsman Catalog. This is their 2020 Ethnobotanical Catalog of Seeds. They are a public access seed bank in California. This is a incredibly dense catalog. It is hugely thick, very small print. Everything is listed by the Latin genus and species. I will recommend this catalog if for no other reason than it is a great learning tool. If you want to learn about the plants by their genus names, this is a great way to do it because you have no choice. You have to know their genus name in order to look them up. They also have just a wealth of information on each plant. Very dense, very succinct information that I love. They also carry a lot of seeds that you can't find elsewhere. They have very libertarian mindset. Their basic philosophy is we provide the seed, what you do with it is up to you. So they have seeds for things like Atropa pelladonna, which is deadly nightshade. They have seeds for Mandragorum officinarum, which is mandrake. They have Datura stramonium, or Jimson weed, Jamestown weed. Super poisonous, by the way, don't mess with that one. All of those are super poisonous. Fabulous catalog. Highly recommend it. Even if you don't order from it, it's fascinating just to read. And it's full of all kinds of quotes in the bottom on occasional pages. Here we go. Yogi Berra quote, "A nickel isn't worth a dime today." I love it. It's such a fun catalog. So yes, definitely check out some catalogs. It's very fun to browse through, and that's a great way of planning out what you want and just figuring out, especially ones like the Bluestone catalog. I'll recommend that just for looking, because you can see they have full color pictures of what old plants look like, and kind of helps to get you a good idea of what these plants actually look like, and it's very fun stuff. So the last thing that I do during the season of Yule is I will sometimes, I prefer to grow things from seed, and there are some seeds that will not grow unless they've gone through that period of cold that mimics the season of winter. So those seeds, in order to germinate properly, they need to have something called cold stratification. The best and easiest way to do this, of course, is simply to plant the seeds outdoors in the wintertime and just let them go through the winter. There are other ways to cold stratify that I may cover in another video, but as of right now, I'm trying to be minimal effort. So I do actually have a bunch of seeds out in pots right now, just so I can kind of keep better control and better track, and also to keep the squirrels out of them, because the squirrels are digging all over my yard. I have a real squirrel problem this year. But cold stratifying seeds is really the only planting and outdoor activity that I really do during the wintertime. And that's very minimal, just putting a few seeds in a pot, giving them a little water, and then letting them sit out in the cold and just let those natural cycles break down those germination inhibitors that allow the seeds to bloom, hopefully in the spring. So basically that's it. That's what I do in the garden here. So I'm reading, filling in those gaps in my knowledge, planning what I want to do once it's warm, getting my garden layout updated, making sure I'm always putting everything on paper so that I can go back and reference it when I inevitably forget, and just trying to keep myself in check, make sure that the plans that I'm making for the future are reasonable ones and that I don't get carried away. But always keeping in mind that anything that I don't get to, I can always save for next year. So that's it. I hope that helps you in planning out some of your activities for your garden for this winter and upcoming spring. And until next time.